Hello and good evening. After a short break, I hope you missed us. We missed you. Um, we managed to get together again, even though we are on various holidays and everything else. As usual, we are on our fireside chat number 44. We pick a topic just a few hours before and then elaborate a bit and then just provide our own opinions. So today's topic is, do we really need a mentor? This is an interesting one. Actually, the thought triggered when I saw an Instagram video and someone said, we don't need mentors, the internet is your mentor, right? And I thought that was quite a polarizing statement, but an interesting one indeed, because mentorship is a very important topic for us individually, for all our careers, but also for us as a company whose business it is to provide talent to our clients to help them get their job done. So this is a big topic internally for us as well, and very relevant. So we thought we'll talk about it, right? So before we start, this show is for you. So we really appreciate your participation. If you like, just please like the thing. It encourages us. Subscribe so you know when we are going to be talking next, and provide us with topic and feedback, and join our live sessions. We do let people know a few hours in advance. Normally, it's on a Tuesday evening. So do join us when you can. Right. So without further ado, let's start with an opening question. What is a mentor? Who's gonna answer?
Jose is going to answer. He was dying to answer this question before.
Well, I guess that's a bit of a tricky question because what you would normally think of is someone who you establish a relationship with, and in order to help you get, let's say, advice or to help you in your career or professional development. At least that's how I would see more of a formal definition. But it is not necessarily the way that I see it because there are many things in that, right? Like there could be that you actively go and seek for someone to help you with that, and you have a clear need or something that you need advice on or something like that, and you go out and do it and establish a formal relationship. Uh, but I think you can be mentored, so to speak, or you can let's say learn from other people and their careers and so on without necessarily having that explicit relationship or that relationship mentor mentee, so to speak. So for me, it's a bit wider than that. I would generalize more and be like people that you can learn from in order for you to improve your career and develop your career, whether that is a formal relationship or that person is even aware of it is a different story. But the more formal aspect would be, yes, you have this relationship, and it's usually someone with more experience or who's already gone through, let's say, this the stages where you that you're going through at the moment.
Yeah, I never had a formal mentor, right? So I had career managers or line managers and stuff like that, but they were not a formal mentor. So of course you might go into the proper definition, dictionary definition of mentor, but I'm more on your side, Jose, as well. So if you ask me what I consider as a mentor, is it's not just someone that I can learn from, because we can learn from many people, right? So you can learn from loads of people. But for me, like, there is a stage where it goes beyond than just learning from someone to actually say, like, I consider this person a mentor. And I think that is when you develop a slightly different relationship with that person. I don't like the idea. Before I misunderstood, I'll try to clarify that. I don't like the cult of celebrities. This is not what I'm talking about. Not that you admire someone and you want to know which dresses they are using in the red carpet, right? So, or who they're married to. I'm not talking about that. But there are some people that sometimes they build a body of knowledge, or they become such an expert in a certain area that you really feel like, I really want to follow this person. I want to understand how this person thinks. Is not only triggered by an immediate need for a specific learning, is more than I like how this person conducts her professional life, or the depth of knowledge that this person has in that field, and I want you to follow that the work of that person, not only the immediate need, but the full body of knowledge. And that's for me is when it transcends the just learning from someone, then to go in a bit deeper in how that person thinks and behave, more on the professional aspect. That's what I'm saying. And that's because then there is an intimate relationship, because you professionally, you at least in certain aspects, you want to shape your professional side more towards how that person shaped her professional side. That's for me, that's a bit deeper.
I think this, the mentor mentee. There is an important thing you said as well, Sandro. Is what do you want to actually learn or take from that mentor? If you go back in history, I think a while back, it was in the book Mastery. I think it's talking about Michael Faraday, and he sought Sir Humphrey Davy as his mentor. But in the old kind of days, this it was more like he saw the body of work that Humphrey Davy was publishing, and he knew that that was where the cutting edge of science was, of the field that he had chosen, right? And he sought this person out, and he actually tried very hard to get an apprenticeship with him, and then he ended up working in his lab and learning from him. Actually, in the end, he actually went beyond Humphrey Davy, and Humphrey Davy was very jealous of Michael Faraday's, and there was a big tiff. But there is another kind of thing around that, like, there is a journey. At some point, that relationship stopped. But in their case, it was very much he wanted to learn the methods, the kind of the advanced knowledge that Humphrey Davy had through his experimentation and work, that Michael Faraday wanted to be a part of and learn from. And once he had learned, he actually moved beyond it as well. So that's one kind of mentor. The other kind of mentor you often think about is someone who is more about attitude or approach, or kind of a general mentor. Someone you go to more for general advice. You're not there because they are super knowledgeable in your area of expertise. They're there because they have world experience, or some other kind of way of thinking that you admire, and you think that by speaking to them, certain aspects you will get clarity in your own decisions, and that's a bit more general. But I think mentoring can be, you can choose what kind of thing that you want to be mentored in, and then you can seek out the kind of people you think, well, they have it uh, at least better than you, or there is definitely a bunch of things that you can learn from them, or preferably a lot of things where a long-term relationship is worth cultivating,
But
because
there
you.
is, yeah, there are two topics that might be interesting for us to distinguish in this conversation. One is what we consider a mentor. So for example, for us to look up or say like, okay, I would consider this mentor, I would like to be mentored by this person and stuff. The other thing is the mentoring that you just mentioned, Mash. That is the process of the mentorship, if you like. And
Mhm.
those for me are different things. Like what would I would consider a mentor, and the actual mentoring process. You know,
And the difference with coaching as well,
the
because I think there could be a little bit of that in there as well. Mm,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
like,
why don't we explore that? So because this is a good point, Jose. Why don't you, like, I don't know, maybe expand a little bit more on that difference, because that might shed some light.
okay, so for me it would be, for a mentor, you've already identified some sort of need that you have, and you're seeking out a person that you can establish a relationship with in order to further or help fulfill that need, so to speak. No, like, You mentioned the Faraday case. I want to learn about TDD and craftsmanship, whatever, and I find someone who you know knows about that, maybe establish a friendship, etc., and basically cultivate that relationship in order to get advice or whatever, right? It also it's something that is mutually beneficial, right? So when you create that relationship, it's not like, oh, you're sucking someone's knowledge out and then you go somewhere else, and that no, you really build a relationship, in many cases friendship and so on. When you're working with a coach, I think it's a different thing. First, you may not have clear needs on what it is, like, because you may not have clarity on what it is that you want to work on or whatever, right? Second, the person may not have necessarily have the knowledge or whatever, and what they do is more on the side of helping you reflect and guide certain reflections as you're going through the process, and to some extent also acting as a mirror, right? Like, hey, it's a bit like a psychotherapist, so to speak, no, but it's like, hey, maybe I'm calling bullshit on that because you're saying this and that, but you're really doing something else, and and I don't really, they of course they want you to succeed and all of that, but they're not necessarily invested in you succeeding, right? Like, what they want is for you to find where you want to go and for you to take steps to do that and help you in their journey. So it's more of an accompaniment, no, or a companion in that reflection process. Yeah, that's how I see it. The other one is more like, okay, so maybe you've already went through that and I'm looking for some advice, or more along the lines, it's closer to consulting. But there's another thing, like, if you put consulting there, what are you doing? No, when you go to someone and say, hey, I have this problem, no, you could say a mentor is sort of like a consultant. But when you go to a consultant, normally you go and you have this problem, or you don't know exactly what the problem is and they need help you find it out, no. But then the job is, okay, so here are the options, right? And this is what I would recommend for you based on this and this criteria, but now you should go through there, and then maybe I will help you execute as well. So there's a spectrum there, and it doesn't mean that if you're a consultant you won't be mentoring people, or you won't be coaching people, right? The same as if you're a mentor, it doesn't mean that you won't be coaching people, or sometimes you'll be consulting as well. So this is how what I've seen, no, like, especially if you're providing advice. So it's the roles tend to be a bit blurred sometimes when people are actually interacting. I don't know if that makes sense. Tell
No,
me if
well, no,
I just
it does. Like, for according, well, it was clear to me what you said. It's what was interesting is that I have a almost the opposite perception. So, for example, when I think about a mentor, I think about someone that inspires me, that someone that I want to learn from, and I want to be close. I want to be talking to. More on almost the opposite that you described. It's not that because I have a very specific problem and I want, for example, I want to learn TDD, so I want to find a mentor that knows TDD. No, I find a coach that knows TDD, and I learn TDD and I move on because I don't have that. So there are things that for me, like the relationship with the mentor is way beyond any immediate need or anything that I want to learn. It is more like a much bigger thing. I admire the way that the person conducts themselves in that profession, or how they build that body of knowledge. There is an inspiration side to it, but
There
not
is
with.
an inspiration, but it doesn't need to be that you admire them in terms of their conduct. I think it's more about you, as long as you value what they have achieved and the things that they know, and where they are, and you think that by being in their orbit and having those, either learning from them or discussing with them and so on, that you can grow. But also, so that's one kind of mentor. The other one is the admiration, where actually you really feel that this is a person we're talking to, because it's not just about the learning, it's a valuable experience in general for you.
Yeah.
Not even more around pleasant social kind of, it's the kind of person you want to be speaking to, because you feel that every time that when you speak to them, you will get a lot of value from it in many ways, and not just relate.
Regardless what the conversation was about,
Yes,
almost, right?
yes, yes, exactly. So
Yes.
there can be different reasons, I think, to have a mentor. You don't have to admire the person in terms of their general approach to life for them to be your
Exactly.
mentor, and the other way, you don't have to admire them for their technical or knowledge expertise in the areas that you are seeking expertise in to be your mentor either.
I think this is worth emphasizing, this point that you made, Mesh, because like ultimately we are dealing with people, and that's why I was trying to be very emphatic when I said like I don't like the celebrity cult. Like even with my mom and dads, there are people that I admire a lot and love to bits, but they also have their flaws, and I have my flaws and stuff. That doesn't mean that just because I love my dad that I would agree in everything that he says. And this is true for any other person that we might consider a mentor. Like there are areas of their life that their work that we like and want to be, but that doesn't mean that we agree with everything that person
In
does.
fact, like Sandro, it's interesting you say that, because I almost have like a negative reaction to celebrities often, because whenever, like, often in tech
Mhm.
celebrities are generally, I mean, there's a lot of people, who have a big body of knowledge, right? But there is a class of people who are very popular, but they are popular because of opinions that rancor, opinions that kind of create reaction,
Mhm.
rather than really well thought out ideas and applications, right?
Mhm.
And often I mean, at least towards the last part of my career, you find way more of the former than the latter,
Yeah.
right? And I think I would completely agree with you that I often see that people who are, kind of really have a great big following often tend to be saying what more because of the reaction, or the kind of propagating their own celebrity cult, rather than some real well thought out
Mhm.
information, because often when something is very well thought out and nuanced and so on, it's a bit boring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
may be straying a little bit from the topic here. I have to say, because if we're going down that route, can you only be mentor, or you be inspired by people who are celebrities and so on? You know what I mean? Like, it's not really, like, it is part of the equation, and some people, tend to put others in a pedestal, and kind of like, oh, whatever they say is, you know goes to mass, no.
Mhm.
uh,
No,
and
no.
that
I
not
think I can
necessarily
shed
needs to be the
I can
case.
shed some light. No, because I'm happy to move away from the well known names in the industry. But for example, as I said at the beginning, I never had a formal mentor. I don't even know if a formal mentorship program would be the right thing for me. For example, if I went to a company and they say, "Hey, I want a mentor." Yeah, everyone wants a mentor. Everyone wants to learn from someone. But I always felt that very selfish feeling, like, "Oh yeah, I want learn to someone, and the company needs to provide a mentor for me." It never worked like that for me. Even if the company had to arrange that for me, it would never work, because for me, that relationship, I had to choose that mentor. But most importantly, that person had to choose me as well. So for example, and that's why the informal relationships always worked better for me. I'm purely talking about from my experience. I'm not criticizing any kind of initiatives that even we have internally or other companies have. I'm just talking from a personal perspective. So I worked I there are two people, probably two people that I consider that were really important, like that I learned a lot from, and I wanted to get closer to them. And they were not celebrities; they don't have a public profile, and one of them I wrote in the book and stuff. So those people don't even know that they were my mentors, but I established a very close relationship because they were my managers, right? I wanted to work with them. I made changes, I made movements in the company so that I could be transferred to their teams. I went to introduce myself, I studied what they were trying to do, and I made everything that I could to be closer to them and be part of that team. And the act of working with them continuously and having those informal conversations and work conversations and informal conversations is what created that relationship for me, from my perspective, right?
I think
So,
that
go
is
on.
the Michael Faraday's case. Like that's that kind of mentor where,
Mhm.
and you make a very good point there, Sandro, because I think that just having a mentor imposed on you, a random person who, like, you join a company and a random person is then your mentor. This is not how mentorship works, right? Even like, that case, there is this, you have to find your own mentor in, for however long that needs to be, if that's the kind of route that you want to take, right? And and that needs to be, as you said, it needs to be well thought out. It needs to be about what you want to achieve, and 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 what how you think this will help you. But then also it's about then creating that relationship, and this is the part of the mentor choosing you, that they
But
see something
yeah,
in you, that
that's
they
what I was
think
going
that
to
that
say,
is,
that it works both ways as well.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
Exactly.
not just about you. It needs to be something
This
that
this is precisely what I was saying, because one thing that I always had, and I mentioned in previous episodes that we discussed, like, for example, when you want to be part of a circle or you want to be closer to certain people, one thing that I always had in my mind is like, but why would they want to be closer to me? Why would they want me in that table? So, what do I offer to them? I don't want just to say, hey, you need to teach me because I have a need. Yeah, great, but like, they have other things to do with their lives. So, I wanted to make sure that it would be worthwhile their time, that they could get something out of it as well. And that's why it's important that those conversations should be pleasant for them as well, right? So, and I always was very, very keen. So the onus for me was always more on me to learn than someone to teach me. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's creating that environment we are all can grow together. And
The interesting thing about that environment is I know you just mentioned conversation as well, but I think that closeness to the mentor matters, right? So especially if you want to learn a set of expertise, or a body of knowledge, you want to be mentored in those kind of things, because it's not that they are, you being within their orbit, within what they are doing, being part of what they're doing helps you get better. So it's kind of that whole idea of the kind of the apprenticeship as well, right? Is that, you're within their orbit, as you said, you sort out this person to be your manager, so that you can work closely with them, and by observing and being part of their work, you are learning, and you kind of absorbing the things that make them a success, and the knowledge that they have is kind of coming to you as almost like osmosis, right? And I
mhm,
think this proximity really matters, especially because if you are learning something that is a kind of a technical or a deep expertise,
mhm,
you can't do that, and with kind of occasional conversations, because like we ourselves in the companies had this mentorship program, and the cases where mentors were in different projects and mentees were in other projects, I think in most cases it didn't really work, because the conversation doesn't carry that observation part, that constant, you know kind of osmosis and absorption of knowledge and behaviors.
mhm.
So this takes us to to another point, I guess, which is, what is it that a mentor does, no, or what makes a good mentor, no? And because you mentioned, no, there's this feedback or observation, or kind of like this, that you get by the proximity, no, and by being involved in things that they are doing and so on. um can you think of other things, let's say, that you would say a good mentor um would do?
Well, I can't, because I'm not a good mentor.
This is a very this is the thing about the formal and informal mentorship, because in our company we had throughout the years many attempts to create the mentor-mentee. And we did that in different ways, in different formats and stuff. Every time that I was assigned as a formal mentor to someone, I failed as a mentor because I didn't have that connection, and we were not together. We didn't have that connection, and I could not relate. And for me, it was just work. So once you are assigned, so because I've been in both sides, right? I like to think that I had some people that inspired in my career, and I consider them mentors, um, even if they don't feel this way. But I also been on the position where I was the mentor, and every time that I was the mentor, and that was formally done, I failed. I failed all the mentees that I had because if I didn't have that connection, for me became just work. It's just another hour that I need to spend with someone because that's part of my job, but not because I wanted to be there. And this only changed, but I had people that I mentored at Codurance that I chose to. And unfortunately, one just left Codurance after 5 years, but I chose to be. So because we've been working for many, many years side by side, and I wanted to see that person to grow. And so I chose to be the mentor, and I knew that the person would benefit from that relationship. So it was almost a mutual agreement. But I had pleasure in going to those discussions. I had pleasure in helping and sharing my knowledge. See what I'm saying? But once that becomes a job, and so you need to turn up to a meeting, and now that's your mentee, and you need to say, hey, what are you doing? So how can I help you today? That doesn't work. See what I'm saying?
I'll tell you what for me is I haven't had a lot of formal formal mentor mentee kind of relationships, I would say. Um, the ones where I am where what you're describing doesn't happen to me at all is where I see that people do want to get better and do care about this thing. Because one thing is, oh, lip service. No, it's like, oh, well, Mash, will you be my mentor and gonna help me grow and all that? No, but then I pass on the responsibility to Mash to help me grow, sort of. No, it's like, well, what should I do next? No, like, what is tell me, Mash, what is it that, no, versus someone who is driven, who wants to get things, and they may not have a very clear picture. They may neither may you know, but they are invested in it and they are willing to put the effort themselves. And then if you can support that, that's great. Yeah. And that I really appreciate a lot, because even if I don't, I will make the time, because if you are putting in the time, I will put in the time as well. And I feel like that's an important factor for me. Like, because if you don't care, why should I care? You
No,
know what I mean?
exactly,
Like,
because I had exactly this point. This is what I was saying like earlier on in the conversation, that the onus needs to be on the mentee, right? Because this is exactly what you said, Jose. Like, if you are, like, for example, put in a position where you need to be the mentor of someone, there's absolutely nothing more frustrating than you jump on a call because now you need to have a call with your mentee, and the mentee is not prepared. They don't have anything to ask you. So they are not doing so, and say, look, mate, like, I'm here to share with you something that might be valuable to you, but like, if you don't value my time, if you don't even cannot even organize our cannot even structure our conversations, right? So if you don't have a plan of what you want to to do, it's not up to me to drive your career, right? So for example, Gerai, you have a comment on the channel. A mentor is a person that guides you in a certain direction to the point of rendering themselves obsolete, but stays part of who you are afterwards. I like parts of the things that you mentioned, but like, I don't think that the mentor has any obligation. The mentor is there to help someone when they need help. The mentor doesn't need to do anything. They should not guide anything. They are there to say, look, when someone comes to me and you are my mentee, I know that you have a plan. I might do that because I like you as a mentee, as I chose to help. Then I might have extra interest to do more things. But ultimately, It's the mentee that should drive the whole process and say, look, this is what I'm trying to achieve with my career. This is what I would like to learn. I'm not quite sure where I go from here. I need some advice in here. And the mentor is helping almost on demand. But the mentor should not be thinking, oh, how am I going to help this person next week when I meet them?
Thinking about this, Andrew, I personally don't think that this goes back to proximity. I think you're talking about like your latest mentorship that you felt was very rewarding, and you had a very close proximity,
Mm-hmm.
right? You were a manager on that project, engagement manager, and you on the client relationship, and you were even helping to create the direction for the project.
You have a friendship relationship on top of all of that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. No, of course. But you are constantly, you are working and they are involved in your work,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think this is where works, right? So my first ever mentee that I had was like a very junior person, just left like a Makers Academy, and I mentored them for a few months. It didn't work up to the point where we actually started working on the same project, and it was just him and I. Yeah. And then suddenly it created this. I don't know whether how much they learned from it, to be honest, but what it did was created this rich environment where I could show them how I approach the things that they were trying to learn, right? But and get them to do, because I needed them to do that because they were part of my team, right? So this relationship I felt worked very closely. After that, I had two other mentors. One was quite keen, but again, I had a lot of distance, and the other one,
Mentees, you mean?
mentees, and the other one I had just complete distance. Like in certain case, it was basically job, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
like come in, and they themselves didn't have a lot of, one very keen, a lot of questions, and it was kind of would fizzle out. But I think this is the key point here, is that a mentee, for it to be like, to transfer expertise, if that's what you're asking your mentor to do, then they have to be part of, you have to be part of their work. And if you're not part of their work, then it's advice and it's all those kind of things. Then yes, I mean, you can call that a mentor as well. You can call anything a mentorship. But if we are really talking about transference of expertise and knowledge, and not making the mistakes that they made, and to accelerate your own development, if that's what you are looking for in a mentor, in the technical arena, then I feel that you have to have that proximity to their job, right? So as a mentee, you have to be in their orbit, you have to be working with them and for them.
Okay. Okay. So, do you need a mentor in order to move forward in your career? Would you say that,
I,
especially
I
in
never.
tech?
So this is another thing, right? So I keep seeing people saying, "Oh, I need a mentor. I need a mentor. I need a mentor." Uh, came across just said I don't. The I never thought exactly like that. So I never thought first. I never felt stuck or blocked because I need a mentor. So like, you know what? My main priority right now is to find a mentor. I never had that need. However, of course, that I always keep my eyes open. I keep working with people and reading things, and every now and again, I bump into people and say, "Wow, this person is very insightful," or "I like this body of work," and I would like to get closer. I would like to know more. I have doubts in this area or stuff. Maybe it would be good to have that kind of relationship so we can talk about those things. So it was more like from this side in terms of almost like not opportunistic, but I didn't find it was a block. So like I really need a mentor, and that's the goal that I need. Otherwise, I'm blocked. I never felt blocked by anything, right?
This is the thing. Like the minute that you have that kind of, oh, what I need is a mentor, then you're kind of placing the responsibility for your development outside of yourself. No, so you're
And
kind of
someone else,
relegating
exactly.
exactly. It's like somebody else needs to come and tell me how I should be doing this, or how I should continue moving my career forward. And I think that's the issue there. So I think, so from my perspective, to answer my own question, I think um, you don't need it. you can progress quite well. In fact, at some point, you won't find people that would easily help you advance your career, because at some point, the kind of problems that you're solving are not problems that a lot of people have found before, or that are not, it becomes that kind of, the apprentice has become the master kind of thing, right? Like, you're no longer in a space where you get a lot from having conversations with people in similar contexts, and you get and you learn from them, but it's not that clear cut anymore, right? Like, this person is, senpai, no, advance in life, no, it's like that's no longer the relationship there, right? um but it will help you, like, especially
Mhm.
at the beginning of your
No.
career, it will
Mhm.
help accelerate a lot of things, and you will be building relationships that may last, your whole life, basically, because that's also
No,
part of
no
the.
doubt about it. I think that like the I think that we need to be. This is a thing that, uh, like again, those of you know my story from where I come from to where I am. I think that there are certain things that I could have done better, but there are certain things that I done very well. I was very careful in choosing the circles that I wanted to belong. I was very careful in choosing who I would be hanging
Out
around
with.
with, right? So hanging up with, right? So I was very, and it's, yeah, hanging up. So hanging out. So for example, I always say, like, you know what, like there is this group of people that really talk about interesting things that I would like to learn more and stuff. So how can I contribute to that group? So how can I belong in there? So I never like, uh yeah, I think that like choosing the right circle of friendships, and not friendships but like professional circles, is very important, right? So you speed up your things, and it's quite often like you need advice. You want you to be surrounded by people that you can bounce ideas, but again, as I always say, those people need to feel the same way towards you.
Mhm.
You cannot just be a drag to the group, because otherwise you'll never belong to that group.
You
See what
know,
I'm saying?
both of you said exactly the two things that I wanted to say. One is the that it's not necessary to have a mentor, but it helps at different levels. It's not just especially at the beginning. I think depending on where you are and what you're trying to learn, and it can help. It will help. For someone who never had a mentor, and at the start of before we started, I was saying that I can't pinpoint. I find it very difficult to say who was my mentor, because I don't think no individual was my mentor, and I never sought one out. To be honest, maybe I just didn't have the mental maturity when I was younger to seek a mentor. I probably would have if I could take my mind back a few years. But the other thing is, I think I got lucky. Maybe lucky and partly attitude is that I got into good teams. I was surrounded from a very start of my career to be in good team, and so I learned from the teams, and I learned from the challenges that they faced, and helping together, trying to overcome those challenges. I learned from, and the attitude part was that I was always very open. I wanted to do things that I didn't just want to do my coding. I was always looking at other things to do. And so I was exposed to a lot more opportunities, I think. And that also helped me grow in my career. But again, in team context from other people who showed me this task, this thing, this way, and so on. So I can never pinpoint who taught me what. Of course, lots of people taught me many things, and I think it's a combination of the teams that I was in, the challenges I was facing, and the open attitude that I had, and those things were my mentors. But I never actually had a mentor.
This
So
brings up the question of, you can have more than one mentor, because I think in this case, I don't want to put words in your mouth, no, but it seems like, I learned from the team is I have more than one mentor, so to speak, even though the relationship may not have been explicit, but I have one more than one person that I could learn
But it
from, that I
wasn't
had
a
develop a
relationship.
relationship, etc., right? So that's the way that I interpret that a little bit. No, it's like, it's, I learned from everyone, and this is another thing that we were I mentioned before, like, which is, for me it goes beyond, because you don't necessarily need to have that formal relationship. You can learn from anyone. Yeah. And I feel like that's part of the deal. If you're doing it as a mentee, so to speak, if you're doing it right, it doesn't necessarily need to be explicit. Hey, I'm going to teach you this, or no, by seeing how you act, or what the things you do, or etc., you can already be learning a lot from that person, independently of whether they meant to teach you that. Which takes me to the other point, which is you learn a lot from people that you would want to emulate their behavior, as well as from people that you would like to completely avoid their behavior, because this is another thing. Like, there are many people who taught me how
The
not
anti
to do
mentor, the
exactly
anti
what
mentors.
not to do. Right? I don't want to be that, so let's work on not being it. And that's also part of it, right? Like, you may be mentoring people even if you don't think that you are, no, to some extent.
It's
So
the whole osmosis thing. Actually, Samuel has a very good point there. Is that it depends a lot on what you're after. You definitely don't need somebody to teach you a specific tool, but you could benefit from being close to people who teach you valuable principles. Now, this actually reminds me of the definition that Kent Beck has in XP Explained about what principles are. And I think he gives an example of, if you're like, gives an example of a gardener. He says, I can plant a seed or a plant and hope that it works, and kind of have the basic ideas. You water it, and it likes sun or not so much sun, and so on. But then, if you then sit and work with the gardener, with a really well experienced gardener, they then start telling you many other things about, like, there is this, this part of the garden. There's a building, there's a shade there, there's this kind of plant that would companion with this kind of plant that will then make it grow in this a lot of kind of situational and tacit knowledge that they, while they're doing it, they explain. And those can be then brought out as principles. And I think it's a very good point, that helping teach you certain principles around the idea. But again, it goes back to proximity, that while they are working, they're teaching you certain things because it's relevant at that point. They won't think of teaching you that normally. It's just because it just happens to be relevant at that time. They're doing it and they're verbalizing it to you. And this it has a lot of value.
so is there a mentoring process? Like, can you think of, if you wanted to mentor someone, like, how would you go about it? Or, what guidelines to follow with this?
There are. I'm just thinking about some of the things that I've been involved recently. I had that person that I just mentioned, but I have another one that I also offered to mentor inside Codurance, and I think that there are the process for me. When you establish a personal relationship, it becomes much easier and natural because it becomes more of a conversation. You don't need to think much about the mentoring process. See what I'm saying? You don't need to structure anything.
Yeah.
Like, imagine the three of us now. We've been having these chats, and even before we decided to start recording, we were already having those chats. We always had those chats since we met, right? So we can even argue like how much we learn from each other, and if this could be considered a mentorship or
We're
not.
mentoring each other
Right.
here.
Well, why not? Right.
Yeah,
So
no.
because we put
Right.
ourselves in a group where we are constantly challenging ourselves and questioning ourselves, and having those kind of debates. Right. So, and we are very different as well from each other. So this helps us learning different things. Um, so when you establish that degree of relationship, the mentorship becomes more informal, like a conversation and stuff, and you have the space to be also more precise. You can talk very, very general, about general things, or you can be very precise, like how would you do this very specific thing in this context. You have that relationship to calibrate the conversations from very specific, how would you test drive this thing in this context, to what do you think about test driven development, or how do you think, what are the best practices out there. So you know what I mean, so you can calibrate that conversation because you have that relationship that you can talk about anything. When you don't have that, and this is we don't have that degree yet, I believe that the mentoring process the mentee needs to structure that a little bit better. The mentee needs to be a little bit more precise in what they would like to learn from you, what kind of advice they would like. And when we have those discussions, the mentee is the one that is saying, hey, those are the doubts that I have. So when I'm doing my job, I come across this kind of scenario. And so I'm planning to do this or that. So what do you think about that? How would you react to this? And or in our next session, there are multiple things that I would like to discuss with you. What if we talked about that? So I think that this would be a valuable, this is what we are trying to do in one of the other mentorship relationship that I have now, is exactly that. Is trying to achieve that balance, is make sure that when we go to our meetings, we have something to discuss. Not always that happens, because we are not in the same project. So there is no proximity. So there's more work. I think that Gerai was saying that as well. When you don't, when you are not working closely, when you are part of this, not part of the same team, there is more work that needs to be done to structure that mentorship thing. So those sessions are valuable.
Yeah, but it's all about communication. Like frequent communication is quite important. Like
there is frequency of
when you,
communication, but there's also a communication done in a way that is not just a bunch of questions and answers. So there is an effort that both sides need to make to establish a personal relationship as well. So even the mentor has a part to play. For example, in my last session with this person was saying, hey, I would like to have this kind of progression in my career. And for example, from my side, I could have said, sure, if I was in your place, I would do this, and that, right? So in order to achieve that. But then I played almost the role of a psychologist and say, like, are you sure that is that what you really want? And I start really asking loads of questions, and why would you want that? And put different scenarios to really help the person to think about what she really wanted. And so, but as you conduct conversations like that, you are not only trying to solve a problem, you are also establishing a much deeper connection to that person as well. See what I'm saying? It's not just a transactional, how do I do this? Do this. So you see what I'm saying? You are striving to achieve that.
I think if you're a good mentor, one rule that I would say, it's, you know, to guide that relationship, is not to tell people to do this, because to be honest, as the best you can do is, I would do this, yeah, or in my experience, this is this is what has worked, or something like that. Because do this seems a bit, I mean, you're gonna give advice, you know what I mean? Like, it's
to be fair, like
that's
even
just a style, isn't it? That's just related to style. Whether you speak in an active voice or in a more indirect voice, that's more related to style.
What I was even trying to say is that I would not even try to say what it should be done. It's almost like trying to ask almost like work as a psychologist and really trying
as
to
a coach,
inspect.
you've been coaching people.
No. So
and
for
not telling
example,
anyone.
no. Well,
We've discovered a new site.
Of course, there are certain things that I can be very precise with the answer. If the person say, like, if you prefer this kind of style or that other style in some software design or TDG, I can be very more precise with my answers. But when the relationship is more on career advice and progression and stuff, there's nothing that I can say in my experience this would be the best place, because like the way that my personality and the context that I live is different from the personality and the context that person lives. So the role of a mentor in that case is be able to help that person to find their own way, share experiences, but in terms of giving more information, but it's still let that person to choose their path, instead of saying just do this, or regardless of how you say that, very actively
Hmm.
or more
Hmm.
passive.
There's another aspect of mentorship which I think we haven't mentioned yet, which is opening doors. And this is something that I think we haven't mentioned it, but it does happen, and it does have an impact. No, um,
This
like
is a very
basically
interesting
get,
one. Okay.
getting you access to, or yeah, there is that aspect as well. Yeah.
This for
And
me, no, sorry, finish
no,
the
no, no, no.
thought.
I think it's just that part of, once you establish that relationship, that person's influence also benefits you to some extent.
Mhm.
Either they can speak well of you, they can get you in touch with other people. And when you look at a context of like a startup or something like that, where you have people to mentor or to advise or whatever, that part of that is being able to get you in touch, get you in the right room, no, with the right people, kind of thing, right?
Mhm.
And what do you guys think about that?
Right. I'll tell you. Like, I don't know, Mesh, if you want to go first, because I probably
No,
will
no, go
go
for it,
for
go
a
for
for
it.
a while. So
Mm.
this one for me is very complicated because these needs. Let's say that I'm in the mentor position here, right? So in order for me to use my influence to recommend someone, that goes way beyond. You need to have a relationship that is in such a state that I trust that person now to perform at a certain level, because I'll be using my own reputation with my own network to recommend someone to do a job or to be involved in certain activities. So, in order for me to reach that level, that person cannot have a relationship with me that every meeting that we have, they are just asking me questions. So, oh, I don't know how to do how we would do that. Because while I feel that they are too inferior, too junior and stuff, they will never be ready for me to recommend them. But at the point where they start doing the walking, I feel that they are really doing a lot of amazing work. And my job as a mentor is more like bouncing ideas, almost like a peer. That's when you cross that line. Then you say, look, you know what, I would recommend that because this person is probably even a better professional than I am in certain aspects. It's you see what I'm saying? So
I would go further than that. I would not recommend somebody unless I have worked with them,
you know, so
because even in meetings they can present a front, and even they can be quite engaging, and you can learn dialogically a lot, but in practical there might be something else. In fact, often I get, like, from our internal recruitment team, they'd ask, oh, this person, they've applied, you've been in the same company and so on. And I like, there's been a few people who I've not worked with, but I have known of. And I would said to them, like, I know of them, but I haven't worked. I cannot recommend or not recommend. I know of them, but that's it. But if I have worked with them, then of course I would be in much more confidence to say that I recommend this person,
yeah.
But
if
there's
they
an
are recommendable.
aspect then there, around, once the relationship is strong enough that you are personally invested in the success of this person to some extent. Because if you're recommending them, it's because you want them to succeed. From my
Sure.
perspective, no,
No,
it's,
no,
it's
but
like,
there are two
if you're
sides to
recommending
this.
them, if you're opening doors, if you're doing something
There are
other
two
than
sides
just
to this.
providing a bias or whatever, like, you already feel like this person should succeed, I'm gonna help them in that, beyond
Sure.
giving them advice
But
or
but there
answering
are two
questions or
sides to
whatever, right?
this. So of course, there are two sides to this. That's what Mesh was trying to say. One thing is I want to help someone. Another thing is I'm gonna put my name behind the work that that person does, and that's a very different thing. So in order for me, because I can help this person giving advice with low stakes, let's put this way. But once I go out and recommend someone to another company, to another client, or whatever, the stakes are much higher now, right? So in order for me to reach that level, I would need to have seen that person working. I would need to be confident that person is competent to do the job. So it's not only just helping the person, but I have the confidence that that person can do an outstanding job,
They
or
can
a good
perform,
enough
let's say,
job
at
for
the
the
level that you,
that is
yeah,
required for
expect.
my recommendation, right?
Mm.
So that is the other side to the story.
So we need closing, nearing towards the end of it, and I think we've kind of taken a bit for a tangent as well. It's so there is a question around the personal aspect, right? So I think we talked a bit around the personal journey on mentors, but it'll be good for yourselves to know a bit more about the personal mentors or not mentors that you've had and how that's helped you. Who wants to go?
Okay, so I'll go first. Um, so so I've had this kind of philosophy for a while where you can listen to what everyone is saying. Yeah. So instead of doing that and living your life terribly, you should make a list. Yeah. And you make a list of the people that you're going to listen to. So every time that you get in some background noise, oh, maybe this should be different or whatever, then you find someone on that list that is relevant to what you want to do, no? And you go there and you ask for advice. You ask for, yeah. These people, for me, I consider mentors in different areas of my life, not only professional, no, but I have that. Um, you guys on that list for me, yeah. I also have Carlos Iglesias, like, or Carlos the Sailor. He used to be is one of the founders of a company that I worked for some time ago. Uh, I met him through the agile community and all of that, and I learned a lot from him in many areas. Um, so yeah, I don't think you'll see this, but so that's one. Um, yeah. Other than that, a lot of the stuff, and this goes back to your original topic, whether you need a mentor or not, because the internet is your mentor. A lot of other stuff I just read and tried to apply myself, and then bump my head against the wall, and then try to. So a lot of it was trial and error and learning from my own mistakes, and not so much having someone else guide me. I think actually for the mentorship part, I kind of went later in my career than than at the beginning, I would say, because I was quite hard headed and young and wanting to
Mhm.
fight the world and all of that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, for me, like I probably can name three people in slightly different contexts, and none of them were formal, right? So one is the one that I described in my book, that one of the very early on in my career, that this guy that everyone talked about, that he was amazing manager and amazing developer and stuff, and he ran the one of the best team in the company and stuff. And I did everything I could to make sure that I could work for him. And I described that story in the book. So if people are interested, you can read in there. Um, but working under him, like I learned a lot of his professionalism, his dedication to the profession, the amount of effort that he put in being great. It was like something that I had never seen before. I've never seen someone putting so much hours in just being great. And all the conversations that he had with us in the team was always pushing us to do best. Nothing was good enough. Of course, he would give us a pat in the back every now and again just to keep the morale, but he was always pushing, and that was very, very cool, very motivating for me. And Of course, that I had someone that today works with us. Again, it was a different stage in my career. So when I joined, when I came to the UK, I joined Valtech, and Akbar is the person. So at that stage that I was, and the things that I wanted to learn, meeting, for example, Akbar was a source of knowledge that there are so many things that I wanted to learn that he knew, and that I wanted to be close. I wanted to work with him and Mesh. Remember this story because I worked with Mesh first, and so Mesh inspired me a lot as well because I learned a lot from Mesh. It was my first project at Valtech. So Mesh shaped my career in many different ways, and Akbar also. So at Valtech, working with that group of people where Mesh and Akbar were part of, they were informal mentors to me in a way. Um, so and then of course I have people like a bit more well known, like people like Uncle Bob and things like that. People that I read their books, I read their whole body of knowledge and stuff, and then I not only him but a few others, but like with a few of them I was able to get a bit closer than just reading their books or watching their talks, and establish that more closer relationship was also something that was very rewarding to me, because like I was striving to be as good as them, because this is another thing with a mentor, right? So at least with some people like myself, so i, I wanted to be part. This is the thing, like, so the mentors, they not only inspired me in a way that I put them in a pedestal and I think that I was shit. No, on the contrary, I wanted to be better than them. I wanted to be at the same level. I wanted to be able to sit down with them and contribute to those discussions. Like I said, like, look, I want them to get value. So I would be satisfied the day that I take people that I admire by their knowledge and they have pleasure in having chats with me as well. And that gave me that extra motivation to be better in what I was doing, and having that kind of recognition from all those people, either less known people or very well known people, and knowing that they have a pleasure just to sit down and have a chat. For me, that was quite motivational in a way.
Thank you very much. Of course, the feeling is mutual.
You had to say that because otherwise it would be like a
Exactly.
bit,
It'd be
yeah,
awkward.
it would be very awkward if you didn't
It's
say
like
Uh,
saying,
that.
"Oh, I love you," and saying
Yeah.
thank you.
no,
It's like,
it's not,
it's like,
actually,
okay.
no, actually, I mean, for once, I am being genuine because, like, from the very start, in fact, Akbar said to me, he said to me, like, how do you? Because, like, Sandro, when he was young, he would like he was like a dog with a bone. He would have an idea, and that would be the idea, and he would be like unshakable. And I remember, I don't know how much you remember, Sandra, but you and I having these
Oh yeah.
very long debates around, I remember there was one time where you were, I'm gonna say, you were a big J2E
Oh
fan,
yeah. Oh
also,
yeah.
also Java Server Faces and
Yeah.
all those
Yeah.
kind of,
Yeah.
and having these big debates, like we would have debates for a, and I remember Akbar said to me, because once he became your career manager, you said to me, how do you kind of have those manage to have like get him to convince him on something, because I can't convince him on anything.
How do you
How do you
tame
put up
him?
with those debates? Yeah, I think that was his thing. How do you put up with those debates? But I think, if I don't know what kind of answer I gave him then, but the answer now would be that actually I was myself learning a hell of a lot. Kind of trying to I personally am not the kind of person who gets involved in these kind of long debates, but actually it helped me a lot getting into those debates. And there was no, escape when we were always working together and having those conversations. So it was great. I think it also formed a lot of my own way of thinking and so on. Um, like I actually do struggle, like, kind of finding, and I was just trying to rack my brain on like what, and I was more, and I started more thinking about the books than the people. Although there's one or two people that I think that I almost follow their work, right? But the books that I think that were seminal, to us all, right? It's no news. Like Clean Code by Bob Martin, XP Explained by Kent Beck. For both of them, I don't really follow them anymore, but those books to me still remain something that shaped me in many ways. The Pragmatic Programmer, even before that, shaped me, I think. And 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 the one that really kind of more recently, a few years back, really started clicking a lot of things in me was The Craftsman by Richard Sennett. That book really just clicked so many things in me, and I've read it over and over again. Um, but then I do actually follow a lot. Like I do listen to and watch everything that Rick Hickey does. So maybe he's a mentor. And and there's another guy called Eric Normand. He was writing this book called Grokking Simplicity, and before he did that, he basically did a lot of blogs, and I would really recommend if anyone wants to. He just would talk about certain things, and a lot most of them just ideas and his own thought processes. And I think I felt that he thought very well, and he did a lot of research around all um, computing papers and all sorts of things. And I felt that it was a rich source of learning for me. So, like some podcasts, I actually listened to a podcast called Developer Tea, and that's also like a more philosophical take on the software developer. And I'd say, like, there's these or have also been my mentors, but like I think the biggest mentor still remains are the other people that I work with, and I work with the two of you the most, I guess.
Yeah, no, it's really good. It's really good to have this. This is what I would recommend as you are wrapping up. I recommend to everyone, try to surround yourself with people that inspire you, that you can have those kind of conversations that can challenge you. I think that what you said, Mesh, about the debates that we had and that we still have, like this one, is like surrounding people that respectfully challenge you, right? So not in a, so they really are challenge you because they want to really go into the, what would be the best approach here, that they are trying to strive to find the best solution, the best way of doing things, and those things challenge you. Those are the people that you want to be around.
Yeah. Cool.
So,
All right. I
time to
think we are
close.
sorry, go
Yeah.
on, Jose.
No, time to close, I guess.
Yes. So, I mean, these can qualify as final thoughts, but any other final thoughts that you may have?
There's always a risk to open a new conversation. So no.
Exactly. That's why I'm closing it as I'm opening.
Then it would be like you don't have any more final
You
thoughts,
don't.
right?
You
Like
don't.
it's like you're not going to eat that donut, right? Like
Exactly.
so
All
yeah.
right.
So, yeah,
Thanks,
let's
All
everyone.
right.
let's let's close
All
it.
right.
And
All right.
again, um if
Enjoy
you
this
like
chat.
enjoy this chat, etc., like, subscribe, send us topics, and yeah, see you on the next one.
See you
Thank
next
you for
time.
listening.
Thank
Thanks
you.
everyone.